What if truth is not hidden in ideas, not in the illusions of the mind, but in reality itself, all around us? While other philosophers searched for answers in abstract worlds, he looked at nature, at people, at life, and said, "Let us begin with what we can see and understand." He was a student of Plato, yet he dared to disagree with his teacher. He became the mentor of the greatest conqueror in history, and it was he who laid the foundations of science, logic, and reasoning that we still use today. His name was Aristotle. Birth and origins. Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in the small city of Stagira in Macedonia. His father, Nicomachus, was a physician at the court of the Macedonian king. This meant that from childhood, Aristotle grew up among people who studied the body, health, and nature. Unlike many Athenian philosophers, he learned early to see the world as something to be studied, not merely contemplated. Childhood and early loss. Aristotle lost his parents at a young age. This early loss made him reserved and deeply observant. He came to understand something essential. The world does not care about human hopes, and therefore it must be understood, not idealized. The journey to Athens. At the age of 17, Aristotle traveled to Athens, the philosophical center of the ancient world. There, he entered Plato's academy, the most renowned philosophical school of the time. A student of Plato, Aristotle spent nearly 20 years in the academy. He respected Plato and studied his theory of the world of ideas, but gradually, doubts began to form. Plato claimed that true reality exists in ideas. Aristotle replied, "But how can we understand ideas without first studying the real world?" Breaking away from his teacher. After Plato's death, Aristotle left the academy. He realized that his path was different. Without rejecting philosophy, he turned toward observation, analysis, and facts. Teacher of Alexander the Great. Aristotle was invited to Macedonia to become the tutor of a young prince, Alexander, who would later be known as Alexander the Great. He taught him logic, ethics, politics, Greek culture. It was a rare moment in history when a philosopher directly influenced the fate of the world. Return to Athens. Upon returning to Athens, Aristotle founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike Plato's academy, philosophy here was practiced in motion. Students walked, debated, and observed. Thus, the peripatetic school was born. A philosophy of reality. Aristotle argued that truth begins with experience. He studied animals, plants, the structure of the body, human behavior. In many ways, he became the first scientist in history. Logic and thinking. Aristotle created the foundations of logic, cause and effect, forms of argument, rules of reasoning. Without his work, it is impossible to imagine science, philosophy, education, ethics, and happiness. For Aristotle, happiness was not pleasure, but the fulfillment of human potential. He introduced the idea of the golden mean, the balance between extremes, between fear and recklessness, between greed and wastefulness. Politics and society. Aristotle studied different forms of government, compared political systems, and reached a fundamental conclusion. Human beings are social creatures. Fall and exile. After the death of Alexander the Great, anti-Macedonian sentiments spread through Athens. Aristotle was accused of impiety. He left the city, saying, "I will not allow the Athenians to sin against philosophy a second time." Death. Aristotle died in exile in 322 BCE, without honors, without power, but with a legacy that would outlive millennia. He did not seek truth in the heavens. He found it in life. Aristotle taught humanity how to think, how to observe, how to analyze, and that is why his ideas are still alive today.